The floor moves before the sound arrives. Not a shake, not a jolt. A slow, enormous lean. The kind of movement your body refuses to name as building, because buildings do not do this. And then it comes back. And then it goes again. And the second time it goes farther than the first. And that is when you understand that this is not stopping. You are 30 floors above Paseo de la Reforma. The window is 4 feet to your left. Through it, the skyline of Mexico City is doing something you have no word for. The horizon tilting, correcting, tilting again. And your hands are on the desk, and the desk is moving with you, and every single object on every surface in this room is sliding in the same direction at the same time. You have roughly 18 minutes before the primary seismic event ends. You don't know that yet. What you know is that your body has gone very quiet in a way that feels like preparation. The noise of thought and intention gone silent. Something older and faster taking over. And the only thing you can hear clearly is the building itself, which is making a sound you will spend the rest of your life trying to describe to people who weren't in it. A low groan, structural, like something immensely patient, finally being asked to do something it was never designed to do. The glass in the window doesn't break. The lights don't go out. The clock on the wall still reads 7:19 and the second hand is still moving. And that detail, the ordinary indifference of the second hand, will be the thing you remember most specifically. Later, when later exists. There are decisions ahead of you that cannot be made in advance. There are other people in this building. Some of them are already making the wrong choices. You will have information, a specific, useless kind of information that they don't have. And at some point in the next several minutes, that asymmetry is going to turn into a question. And the question is going to cost you something. The floor leans again. You hold the desk. The building sways at approximately 2 meters of arc at this height. You don't have a number for it yet. Your body is doing the measuring, but 2 meters is the distance between the window and the door, and right now the window is very close and then very far, and then close again. The cycle is consistent, rhythmic, almost, which is the most terrifying thing about it. The regularity, like breathing, like something alive deciding your fate on an inhale and exhale schedule. Here is what is happening beneath you. Mexico City sits on the bed of what used to be Lake Texcoco. The Aztecs built Tenochtitlan on it. The Spanish built over that. 8 centuries of construction on 60 meters of lacustrine clay. Arcilla lacustre. Soft, saturated, and responsive to seismic energy in a way that no other major city in the world has had the misfortune to discover quite so specifically. What that clay does, what it is doing right now at 7:19 a.m. on the 19th of September, 1985, is amplify. The earthquake that originated 350 kilometers away, along the Michoacan coast, where the Cocos Plate is grinding beneath the North American plate at 7 centimeters per year, until it cannot anymore and releases all at once at a magnitude of 8.1. That energy travels east through rock, which absorbs it, dissipates it, and then it reaches the old lake bed. The clay doesn't absorb. The clay resonates. It takes an already enormous seismic event and tunes it the way a guitar string rings louder at specific frequencies. And the frequency it amplifies most effectively sits between 1 and 2 seconds of oscillation, which is, by the engineering coincidence that will define this day, the natural frequency of buildings between 8 and 15 stories tall. You are on the 30th floor. The buildings that should be most afraid right now are 8 to 15 stories. The tallest ones, counterintuitively, Arini will hold. They sway at a different frequency. They pass through the resonance zone instead of sitting inside it. You don't know this for certain, but your body is running its own version of the calculation, measured in the steadiness of the floor, in the walls cracking at the corners, but only hairline, not widening. And what it's arriving at, cautiously, provisionally, is that this floor is not the floor you need to be most afraid of. The floor below you, possibly. Below that, very possibly. The first floor and the street in front of this building, and the building across the street, that's where the calculation gets uncertain. The coffee you made at 7 a.m. is on the windowsill. It spilled 2 minutes ago, and what's left is tracing a small circle in the saucer. The most honest instrument in the room, showing you the arc of the sway in real time. A small white dish measuring the behavior of 300,000 tons of reinforced concrete. Right now, it tells you the sway is not decreasing. You made the coffee yourself because the woman who usually made it isn't in yet. She always runs slightly late, always apologizes for it, has a habit of leaving exactly 2 fingers of coffee in the pot so she can technically claim she didn't finish it. It is 7:19. She would have arrived at 7:30. You think about this. You pick up your bag from the floor where it slid and set it on the desk and open it as if taking inventory is a reasonable response to any of this. Wallet, phone, signal gone. 3 bars dropping to nothing as you watch. A water bottle half full. A small flashlight you put in 6 months ago after a power cut and never took out. A folded receipt from the restaurant on the ground floor. You hold the flashlight, cold, solid, fits in your hand. For a moment, the simple factness of an object that works for a purpose is the most stabilizing thing in the room. The building groans again, longer this time, the creak of metal and concrete finding new positions, testing tolerances set by engineers in the 1970s who had data from previous earthquakes and built accordingly, and could not have known about the soil resonance studies that would come later. After today, after all of this became a before and after line in the seismic engineering literature, the sway continues. What you understand now, physically in your chest, in the way your body is refusing to move towards the stairwell, is that the rule everyone has always told you, the fire drill certainty, the evacuate now embedded since childhood, is wrong. Wrong for this building. Wrong for this height. Wrong for right now. Motion kills you in a swaying tower. The stairwell is a concrete shaft running the full height of the structure. In lateral movement, its walls are swinging through a wider arc than you are up here, and the relationship between a moving wall and your skull is not one you want to test. The safe action, the counterintuitive, stay still, hold something action, is to not do the thing your entire nervous system is screaming at you to do. You know this. You stay. You are, by the cold physics of it, making the right call. And then you hear it. Below you, somewhere in the building. Not immediately below, lower, maybe 10 floors, maybe 15. A sound that is not the building's structural groan. A human sound, plural. It rises briefly and drops and rises again, and through the noise of movement and the ringing in your ears, you cannot tell whether it is panic or pain or simply the sound of a large number of people discovering simultaneously that the stairwell doors are jammed. You stand at the desk and hold the flashlight. Your floor is 4 feet from the window. The window is 4 feet from the outside of the building. The outside of the building is 310 feet above Paseo de la Reforma. You know, specifically, technically, in the part of your brain still functioning as something other than an animal, that the people on those lower floors are making a decision the physics does not support. They are in the stairwell or trying to reach it, and the stairwell is a concrete amplification chamber for the exact forces currently trying to knock this building into a lower energy state. They are doing the wrong thing because the wrong thing feels like action, and action feels like survival, and the relationship between feeling like survival and actually surviving is a question this building is currently answering for several hundred people at once. They don't know what you know. You stand there, the building sways, you stand there, her name, the woman who runs late, who always apologizes, who leaves 2 fingers of coffee. Her name is Immaculata, and you have worked in this building for 3 years and learned her name 8 months ago and have never once said it to her face. You don't know why you're thinking about this right now, except that your brain is doing some accounting of all the things that will matter if the floor drops, and her name specifically is on the list. She is not here yet. She would have been here in 11 minutes. She is safe because she runs late. The people on the lower floors were on time. The stairwell door is 30 feet across the room. Behind it, the shaft running the full height of the building. 30 floors of people who don't know what you have just spent the last 4 minutes piecing together. From the way the clay is behaving, from the sound the walls are making, from the small white dish still describing an arc that has not decided to stop. You look at the door, you look at the coffee cup, you look at the door, you don't know how many people are in this building. A number that lived in emergency planning documents you never read, and a fire warden briefing you attended once and immediately forgot. But the building was full, or was full 40 seconds ago when the world was still organized by arrival times and morning routines, and the lower floors, specifically the 8 to 15 floor range your body has been calculating risk for without being asked, are doing what the clay beneath them is doing, resonating, amplifying, testing the decision made by whoever specified the rebar intervals in 1974. You have a flashlight, a working flashlight, a voice and information that is not widely distributed right now in this building. The door is 30 feet away. The water in the cup traces its arc. The building breathes in. You cross the room. You hit the door with your shoulder. It catches, jammed slightly by the frame shift, then gives, and the stairwell opens and the sound hits you before the air does. A wave of voices from below echoing up the shaft. The walls are moving, swinging in the same arc you've been measuring, but amplified by the full height of the column. You grab the railing because the floor beneath your feet is not the floor you left. You start down, not toward the ground. Going to the ground is still wrong. The physics of that is still wrong. But 12 floors down, 14 floors down is where the frequency is worst and where the calculation is most urgent. You have a voice and a working flashlight and information, and the distance between what you know and what the people on those floors know is the distance between staying in the stairwell during active movement and finding an interior wall and holding it. You hold the railing, you go down. The walls move against you. The lights are strobing, emergency backups cutting in and out, wiring somewhere in the shaft intermittently completing and breaking. And in the stuttered light, you pass door after door and shout through each one. Same words. Interior wall. Stay down. Hold something and stay down. On the 11th floor, the door opens from the other side and a man almost takes you off your feet, running. You grab his arm. He looks at you. You say it directly. The ground is wrong. The street is wrong. Go back and hold the wall. He looks at you for a moment. The moment that has no name. The moment when a stranger's face decides whether to believe a stranger. And then he goes back through the door. You go down to 10. You go down to 9. At 9, the stairwell moves so hard your shoulder hits a wall and you feel the impact through your teeth. And for a moment, you are just a body holding a railing in a concrete shaft somewhere in its movement cycle. The flashlight is still on. The voices are still below you. You have not stopped moving. You stop on 7, not because you chose 7. The door on 7 is open and jammed open, wedged by a brown leather briefcase that fell against the frame and held it at roughly 40 degrees. And through the gap, you can see people, maybe 15, maybe 20, pressed against the inner wall. One of them is looking at you. Young, maybe 20 years old, hands flat against the concrete, eyes wide, already doing the right thing, already doing exactly what the physics requires. You look at her, she looks at you, you nod, she nods back. You go back up. The first 30 seconds after you stop moving are the loudest. Your heartbeat is in your ears and the building is still groaning and the stairwell wall is still swinging its slow arc, and you cannot tell, standing there, whether the amplitude is decreasing or whether you have simply adapted to it the way the body adapts to things that persist. Back on 30, the room as you left it, the desk, the bag, the coffee cup, sitting still in its saucer now, for the first time since 7:19. You sit on the floor with your back against the inner wall and hold a flashlight and wait. The building continues to settle around you. At some point, you will never know exactly when, the primary seismic event ends. The silence after an earthquake is different from other silences. It has the quality of a very large thing deciding whether it is finished or only pausing, and you sit in it and breathe and hold the flashlight and don't move for a long time. Later, the numbers arrive. 8.1 magnitude, the Michoacan coast, the Cocos Plate, 412 buildings collapsed, 3,000 structures severely damaged. The death toll announced revised again. 10,000 is one number. Some estimates say more, and the city took years to agree on a figure, and some families never received one at all. The soil amplification, the resonance frequency, the failure mode of mid-rise buildings, all of it studied, documented, turned into new codes, new requirements, a new generation of seismometers installed across the lake bed. You will read some of this, recognize in the clinical language of the engineering reports the thing your body was calculating for 18 minutes while you stood at the desk and watched the cup. What you won't find in any report is the name of the man on the 11th floor. You don't know if he went back through the door. You told him. He looked at you. He turned around. But the door closed and you went down and you never knew what he did after that. Whether your voice was a variable that changed his decision or whether he came back out 30 seconds later and took the stairs anyway. Whether that morning became one of his stories or one of his silences, the flashlight is still in your bag. You have never taken it out. What you know is that you had information and you used it, and some number of people on some number of floors may have made a different decision because of that. You will never know the number. What you also know is that the decision to go back up, the rational decision, the survival correct decision, came at the same moment. You went down to warn them. You came back up to live. And you have spent a long time, you are still spending it, trying to determine whether those were the same decision or two different ones. The cup sits still in the saucer. The second hand on the clock is still moving. Outside the window, the city is making a sound it has never made before and will never make again. You put your hand flat on the floor. The floor is still. You're not sure what that makes you. The person who stayed, and you're not sure the question has an answer you'd recognize from this side of it. But you keep your hand on the floor anyway, just to be certain.